All right, welcome to the Inspiration Lab podcast. I'm really excited to welcome my friend Vanessa Bergmark. She is one of the owners at RedOak Realty out in California. She is a dear friend of mine and a mentor, and you're going to learn so much from her today. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah. So I own a company called RedOak Realty. I bought the company after it was about 40 years old. So it was started by four guys long before, well, probably about the time I was born. And I took over ownership in 2010 and haven't looked back since. We serve the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area. So up in the Bay Area of Northern California
And
and smaller independent. Yeah.
yeah,
How many agents?
how many?
So we're about 170, 175, give or take. It moves around a little bit, but about 175. We're actually, yeah, I'm sure that will come up, but like we're actually closing down some of our offices as we see that there's just post-COVID, there's not a huge need. So we've got about four offices now. We're looking at closing down another and just sort of combining. So we've got three different office locations in two counties in the East Bay.
That's awesome. And so, tell folks just a little bit about how you ended up in the role that you're in right now. Like, did you start as a real estate agent and you were selling, or did you always dream of owning a brokerage? How did you end up in this role?
Definitely not. Yeah, I definitely never dreamed of owning a brokerage. Never thought I would do this, but it's been so much more, I think, than owning a real estate brokerage, and we could dive into that. But yeah, I started as an agent. I was in my late 20s, and I really wanted to start a family, and I wanted a career that I thought would be probably somewhat flexible to having a career, but also raising a family. And and it was taking a really long time to start the family part, so I just kept progressing in the agent part. And so I was only an agent for about 14 months, and I liked the sales aspect, but I was constantly asking to mentor other agents and train and teach and take over operations in certain areas because I thought we could do things maybe a little bit better. And finally, the manager of the company said, "Look, I'm transitioning out to launch another brokerage, and I think you should take the role." So I was like, "Okay."
At
So I went
14
from, yeah,
months?
at 14 months. Yeah. So it was a very quick sales career. And then that was at Keller Williams. And I think that's one thing I will give Keller Williams is when they see like like a type of person move a certain way, they kind of they pluck them out and give them a shot at leadership. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But for me, I really just I loved the operations part. I loved the training part. I loved seeing people launch their career more so than what inspired me to just continue like my own personal sales business, which was great. I had an amazing first year. I'm pretty sure I probably would have been a damn good agent, but
Yes.
my feeling, yeah, is you get to if you love that work of growing other people's business, you get to do it for 20, 30, 40, 100 people
Yeah, which
as
is
opposed
really
to just
cool. Yeah, I don't think I ever, for as many times as I've talked to you, knew it was that fast. 14 months is kind of speedy, but that's really cool. And I
uh
mean, your degree is certainly not connected to real estate. When I was like digging in and reading your bio and thinking about, wow, I mean, but whose is? I mean, I think most
that's just it.
people, right, they end up in real estate. If they are in real estate, if we're at a conference and it's like, raise your hand if you knew you were going to go into real estate, almost everyone, it was their family.
Yeah,
Mom, dad,
exactly.
uncle, something, but very few people like what kid is dressed up as a realtor at Halloween?
None, none,
Right.
except maybe a realtor's kid as like a joke, and they don't even
Exactly.
think it's funny.
Exactly. You
And
won't
how many realtor kids are like, "I'll never be a realtor," and then they go to college, and then they do, and then they, sure enough, they're a realtor.
they show up
So
like a year or two later and they're like, this is not a bad gig. I think I want to start at the family business. And
exactly.
actually, even when the Barbie movie came out, like I have a friend who's a dentist and other friends, and they're like dressing up like, dentist Barbie or astronaut Barbie or whatever. And I was like, oh, realtor Barbie. They don't even have a realtor Barbie. Like that's not even a thing. They need to make one though.
No.
There are millions of us. So, I mean, it would be a smart idea. Come on.
Exactly. And we would have great accessories in the box, like so
Yes.
much realtor stuff that you could put in. So Barbie is like missing out on ancillary accessory sales items by not having a realtor doll.
I know, like somebody needs to hear this, Mattel or all the people. Well, you're in
Hmm.
California, let them know. They could
Right.
do a lot with that. The Barbie dream house needs a Barbie realtor,
It totally does. It
doesn't
totally
it?
does.
I
And
really,
we would definitely told her not to do all pink. We would probably do like shades of, but Yeah.
I don't know. I'm that literally that's actually something that like we're gonna get into next. Thinking about you and pink makes me laugh a little bit because I always think of you in like black, something chic. And um when I wasn't your friend and I just knew you from afar and this person who spoke at conferences and was so cool, and you always had on like leather or black or just something that was just so I don't know, California cool or even New York City. And I just, I'm always wearing like these bright colors and Southern dresses. And like, I feel like we're a little yin yang in our looks. But I was like, I want to be cool like Vanessa and I want to have a look and I want to just be a person who, when they walk in the room, they just have it together and they have a personal brand. And I have confidence like that. And it was really something I aspired to. And that's one of the things that I thought you really could share with people who are listening, which is how does somebody actually get there? Like, were you were you born this way? But no, was that something that over time you got clear on, or was it something that always, even when you were younger, you were really clear on like, this is who I am. And I I know I have strong preferences and it doesn't matter what other people are doing.
Uh, I think probably the latter. But I would challenge you on this. I think you're very much of the land, right? You you resemble and you embody where you come from. And I've always, it's so funny that you bring that up because you are like shades of like these great primary colors. And you bought me that yellow bag once. And it's so funny. I bring it out in the summer. I'm like, I don't know what to do with yellow in the winter, but it certainly is my summer color, right? I'm like, whoa, I've never gone yellow. I think we just like I grew up in Brooklyn and then I moved to Oakland. And we wear a lot of black in
Yeah.
these places. And my son is so funny. My son is, I will just say, he is a really alternative dresser and he takes his clothing and his jewelry incredibly seriously. And it's his thing. And when we had gone to Africa this past Christmas, and I was like, hey, you got to put on some safari colors, like we're going into the bush. And
Yeah.
he was like, and he went there and I have some pictures of him that are so amazing where he's like out there in the bush, like walking with the San Bushman, and he's wearing his black Oakland like rings, necklaces, and it's like the sun down, it's 115, and he was uniquely him. And everyone's like, is he a rock star? Is he a,
I
but
love it.
I think it's right. And I was like, I no, he just will not. This is who he is, no matter where you take him. I took him to Nantucket a few weeks ago and we were laughing. It was like this like very kind of prestigious seersucker restaurant that we went to, and in he rolls with his saggy jeans, his chains. Like I thought they were going to call the police, but I think that the thing is, I never really went for a look. I just am like, it's you wear what you're comfortable in,
Yes.
and I post COVID, I haven't been as comfortable in leather leggings as I was. So I'm more like I'm more like linen, wrinkly linen. But I think I think it's very the way I probably dressed or presented myself, or was just how I felt comfortable being, and it wasn't super purposeful. It's just that's my wardrobe, and it's probably because I shop in a city that you know, serves up a lot of clothes like that. So you get sort of like of the land.
Yes.
I don't know.
And I think that
Probably.
when I went to these events, we were in cities that were of the land. I'm in California,
Yeah.
I'm in New York City. So, but for me, when I'm coming in brightly colored dresses, I mean, people on the street are like, what is going on? Like, where is this person going? Like if you wear bright yellow in New York City, they're like, are you trying to be a cab? Like, what is happening? So,
But you were very you. You were very you as well. And I think that's what I loved about those events was you would see people coming from where they are. And that's the great part about real estate is we're serving up local markets and local
yes,
like just local traditions. And I,
like
I just I
embody
love
it.
and I love that when it's on. Yes,
Yes,
embody
like
who
like
you are.
own it. And I think it's so important. It is um I think that I've sort of over time, as I've gone to more and more conferences and more places, like, look, you're gonna need a coat in New York City in January, like bring a coat. But underneath of it, be whoever you are, because I think that over time, that is sort of how you build a personal brand, both in your market and outside of it. It's how you get referrals. Because when people think the South, you want them to thank you. And if you've been literally dressing like you live in Oakland or New York City, they might not remember. But if you have embodied the place that you're living, it works. Do you know what I mean? It helps people connect. Um, but related to that, I do think that part of that comes from confidence and clarity. And when you're seeking clarity in big business decisions, or when you're trying to help someone like me, because you really mentored me and helped me in a really big decision in my life, how are the ways that you get clarity around business decisions or even personal ones?
Yeah, I think they all stem from the same place. I mean, I think, and I probably had this from a pretty early age, is I really trust myself. Like I really do believe that I will do the right thing. And when I have made mistakes, I will realize, you give yourself a pass on that one. I don't beat myself up. I'm not like a shredder of, oh my God, I did this and it's unforgivable. Like we make mistakes sometimes. We'd go down the wrong path. But I had a mom that was really, 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 really supportive of giving me kind of free reign to be who I was and to have certain relationships and stand by certain people, kind of not play that game that was so many like high school games around in being popular. You only had to hang out with the popular kids or you mistreated other people. Like I really had a very strong parent role, which during my years of building who I would be as a person and gathering my confidence, I think I really harnessed that, which got
Mm,
me ready to go off into college or travel alone or push myself on certain projects um, that maybe a lot of people wouldn't do. And it was a lot came from that inner self confidence. And where does that come from? I think it's just the ability to, again, not when you do make a mistake, which you undoubtedly will, if you're taking risks, is to not take another risk because it worked out badly the last time. Is to trust yourself that you keep going and keep getting back out there. And I think really when I do business, I mean that is what I've probably done best. I've had some miserable business experiences, really challenging experiences, but I haven't stopped or given up.
yeah, and I love that because there's somewhere, I don't know if it's in one of the documentaries about Michael Jordan, because I think there were 2 that came out relatively recently, but somebody said about him that he has a really bad memory. And that's one
Mm.
of the things that serves him best, right? Like he misses a free throw, he forgets it. He just keeps going. I actually have a very bad memory, like I for real do. And I think it's a great gift because I just forget successes and mistakes, which is probably a good thing. It keeps you from getting too connected to the things that are going really well. But also, when I make a mistake, I can't actually, like, hang on to it too long because I just forget it. So, it is not always a great character trait, but in other ways, I think it helps you keep pushing because you're not able to just, like, hang on to, "Oh, what did I say in that conversation? I don't remember." Like, a lot of times I don't
Yeah.
remember because I'm just
Yeah.
moving on, you know? It's like, "Okay, I'm glad that went well," or it didn't, but I think that, to your point, so many people I think are just stuck either on a success or a failure or something in
Right.
between. And that forward momentum, I think, is especially in our industry, you just have to keep moving forward because it changes every day. I mean, how different is it right now than everybody predicted it to be?
Oh,
Everybody's like,
God.
oh, Q3
It's
2023, interest rates will be
yeah.
going back down. Everything will be fine. And here we are.
We yeah, we never know what's coming. We never know what's coming. I think it's always going to be like not what's coming, but your ability to adapt to it. And I think, if you could handle your reactions, right, and handle your expectations of yourself and others, and frankly, being pretty forgiving always helps too. Like, there's so much happening moving forward. I don't really have a lot of time to hang out in the past,
Mm,
being angry at a situation, a person, an event. It doesn't matter. It's already like done.
yeah.
And like there's so much happening moving forward that I'm like, I gotta focus on that. So just by mere weight of experience, you just got to drop some baggage, and it's been really good of dropping the bad. But you bring up a really good point of not getting too attached to the good, right? My mom always says the what is it? The peaks are greased. She's a real New Yorker, right? So she'll always be like, don't get too comfortable in a really good thing. Like always be prepared for the worst. The peaks are greased. Like it's been
I
a good week
love
now,
that.
but next week, bad. Yeah. So I'd be
The
like, thanks,
peaks are
mom.
greased. I
That was
love it. But it is, especially in real
it,
estate, like you can get a little, like, you can rest on your laurels to get a little too excited about something or just hang on to it too much. It's wonderful, but you got to keep going, you know?
you do. And the other thing though too that the one thing I find, and I'm sure it's in other industries, I'm sure it's in Hollywood, I'm sure it's in any very competitive, personal branded industry. But what gets me sad when I see agents um, kind of beating themselves up is this competition with one another.
Mm,
They get into this thing where they look at social media, they look at stats, and they get really caught up in what others people's success is. Like they had a better quarter, or they had a better month, or they got that listing. And it really, like, sometimes it really like cuts into the core of that agent. And it's really, in my opinion, very debilitating
Mm,
to to constantly measure yourself by others. And it's a plague in our industry. I see it even with
mm,
the best realtors, that they're doing this, gauging thing. My feeling is, like, if that social media is a trigger, or going on the MLS and stats are a trigger, and you're feeling bad about yourself, like, don't source bad energy. Like,
yes.
you actually have to deliberately log on and scroll and do that to yourself. That's almost self-inflicted. So stop doing it. Like, how is that serving you? If it's something that gets you inspired because you're a competitive person, well, okay. But if it's not, and it's making you feel bad, and you're starting to get down on yourself, and it's taking away and zapping your confidence, like, how in God's name is that serving you? And why do you keep on going to a source that's negative? And I just question the industry, and I question business leaders. They
Mm,
look at someone else, they say, somebody else is doing this, I should do this, we're not doing that. That's not your model. That's not your thing. Like, maybe it's a good idea, but maybe it's a really bad idea. Like, don't measure your, like, whether or not you're doing the right thing by looking out there at somebody else all the time. I think there's, like, part of just that sourcing your confidence of
mm,
what's working, and here's maybe things I can take and ideas, but I'm not going to do this because I think I'm failing. I'm going to do this because I feel like it's an added great flavor to what I'm already doing. And I don't want to be super Pollyanna about it, but I think I find a lot of that in our industry that I think I've done personally a pretty damn good job on not getting caught up with. And I really try to work with my agents on, please, no need to go there.
oh, yeah, it's so I mean, I think you're right, it's like drinking it's like, why would you go drink from a poisoned well? Which is what a lot of people are doing. I would argue that very few people find that motivating. I don't. I either feel too prideful, like, "Oh, I'm kicking so and so's butt," or I feel like crap because 'cause I'm behind them. I almost never look at
Yeah.
rankings, and it's a positive experience for me. I either get too inflated or too deflated. I don't
Oh,
there's
yep.
no happy medium. I mean, to be completely honest, that ranking comparative experience is never a good thing for me, you know. The other thing is what you can't see is like, oh, maybe that person had a bad month or a bad quarter. We don't know, did they have a health issue? We don't know what they're going through. Or in the on the flip side, we have no idea what the person did, you know, to have the success. It's like there's so little in the story of statistics. All we see is a
Yeah.
number. We don't know what all is going on behind it. And I just think, you know, who knows? There's all this like argument about who is the source of this quote, but you know, that comparison is the thief of joy. But it really is.
Mhm.
You could be completely happy with the month that you had, and then you go look at the rankings and poof, it's gone, right? I just think that, you know, with our team and what we're doing, we like being a little bit on an island because we're happy on our island. We're doing things, you know, the way that we feel like makes sense for us. And we want to keep doing that. We want to keep delivering great experiences for our clients. And as long as we're doing that, which we feel like that's what we're supposed to be doing, we've actually been quite successful doing that. But we're not looking around at what other people are doing. Do you know what I mean? That's just
Yeah.
confusing and
Look,
distracting.
if it serves you, if looking around serves you and actually gives you inspiration and fires you up, then by all means do
Yeah.
it. But if it's not serving you, if it's bringing you down, and you're going out there to look for something to bring you down, I'm going to have to ask, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on with you? Because
Right.
this isn't even falling onto your lap, or this is you actually going out and doing that to yourself. So is this some sort of, like, sadistic way
Yeah.
of, like, making yourself feel bad? And I find it so, I just find it rampant in our
Oh,
industry.
yeah.
And it's just something that I'm like, look, I always think, like, if you can change something if you track and measure it. So I'm big on tracking and measuring things. Even if it's bad, I want to know it's bad. Like, if
Yeah.
my numbers are not good, and this year was, a really great year on, we've had so many great years, and this year was an abysmal year. And I've never tracked my numbers more closely than I have this year. I've always been a number tracker. I've always closed my books every month, looked at my profit, looked at my P&L, looked at where things, I was very big on that. But this was like a weekly deal of, like, where are these going, and tracking, like, where am I heavily weighted on things that I need to really make a move on now, or where are my agents really suffering, or what, like, where are my weak points, because I'm going to need to, like, it's on me to get ahead of this, or to know what the hell is going on. And so I'm big on going out there and sourcing that, but But again, it's not to make myself feel devastated and bad, right?
Right.
It's so that I can be proactive and influence of like, okay, this is the gig right now. What do you need to do? What do you and your team need to do right now that you have control over? And so
Right.
there's a
And
lot you don't.
when the numbers are creating a roadmap for you, that's super helpful, right? When they reveal something to you that can help you make a move forward. I think that's you have to know your numbers. When people in real estate are like, I don't know my numbers, I'm like, are you in the right industry? Like that's all that's in many ways all that it comes down to. When even when you're purchasing it, you're
It's
helping somebody buy a house. Like you have to help them know the numbers when it comes down to comps, when it comes down to everything. I mean, like this is kind
and
of
they
a
do,
math
right?
gig. Yeah.
They'll say, I don't know numbers. And you're like, oh, but you know those numbers. You can tell me inside out what that CMA is and what this market is and how much it's up and how much it's. I mean, you know numbers. You may not know these numbers. And my feeling is if you don't know those numbers, that's fine. But you better get someone around you that does, whether it's your accountant or your
Right.
husband or your wife or someone around there that does know them because it is in the end business. And you could put yourself out of business if you don't know them. But by all means, don't give yourself the excuse if you don't know them because I've seen agents that may not know their business numbers but know those market numbers. I, I would never, I would only go to them and be like, I'll get calls like on a referral, whatnot. I'm like, don't ask me. I
Yeah.
can give you the overlay of the market. I'm going to give you somebody that this is like, it's right there at the tip of the tongue. They study it every hour and they know it inside out. So they do know their stuff.
Yeah. No, I think that that's so smart. One of the things I was thinking about too, as we were talking about this, is about being really clear and of course clarity and confidence. But I was also thinking about the difference between because I think real estate is a really tricky place, a tricky profession. Because you can work out your ambitions, and I think being ambitious is a wonderful thing. But can also work out a lot of your um, the things that you're sort of self-conscious about or all that kind of baggage that you're carrying, from your past, like trying to prove something. And you can make yourself really sick working for so long trying to prove something to someone from middle school or someone else just to kind of get like that next sell, or get that next ranking. And I think that our industry um, has a grind factor to it and a hustle to it where finding some kind of give and take with, like you said, you went to Africa with your family and trying to help your agents. How do you help your agents find a place to sort of take care of themselves when if you let it, the industry will just gobble up your soul and your life? Because I think so much of what we do, like once you're successful, it is sometimes hard to pull back, and sometimes the things that you're working through, it's not even about the money. A lot of times you can work through a lot of your brokenness in real estate because it can really
Mhm.
feed your ego. It can really put you on a pedestal. um it's just it's a very public facing job.
Yeah. And it's one where you are talking a lot about yourself and your success so that you get more clients. Like we
Yeah.
gotta just name it for what it is. It's part of the way that we drum up business. I think two things I would say. First of all, travel and experience have always been one of my highest values. They
Mm,
always say if you want to highest values are look at your bank account because it's what you're going to spend your time and your money on. And so for me, that's a non-negotiable item. I've been traveling since the day I started the company. Since like I've been traveling long before like that just was since I was 18 and went on my first trip. I was like, that is a massive value for me. I was not raised in a family where that was important. It just was one of these things I self-discovered was important to me. So therefore, I'm always, I will always go out and look for those experiences because they really have influenced and continue to, depending on which country I go to, you know, to continue to add to the ingredients of who I am as a person. So I unapologetically source that in my life, and I really celebrate when my agents say I'm taking a month off. I'm going here. We actually built a sabbatical program into our matrix, where if you want to go abroad and live, that we will take over a portion of your marketing and we will lock your splits. Like there are certain things that we do the same thing around maternity leave. Like there are certain things where we say these are high values to the people operating the brokerage.
mm,
Therefore, they can't just be good for us. They've
right.
got to be something that's used into the opportunity for the agents. So when agents go away, I'm like, you post those pictures. You get someone to cover your business. Don't you hide and shame that you're not there. Like,
Right.
you want to go to New Hampshire with your family for a month? God bless you for doing that. Like, take advantage of some of these things that about this career, the career will let you if you let it. And,
Right.
you know, they've got a very, very good environment at Red Oak where they can cover each other's business, where we can work things out, where they actually can do this should they want to. If it's not a high value to them, then no worries.
Right.
But so for me, it's like there's a great little quote that says like take like I don't know a summary of like basically take time off so you don't want to quit.
Mhm.
I'm butchering it, but it's basically like give yourself a little bit of space so quitting is not the solution.
Have a
You
job you
give
never
yourself
wanna
that.
take a,
No,
vacation
I
or
believe I
it's like a
no. It's
Seth
more
Godin
like
quote or something. I know what you're talking about, but yeah, I
I
mean, it's
forget what it is, but it's like, yeah, where basically you're not like so burnt out that you're like, I got to quit this thing.
yes,
Don't
yes.
quit it. Give yourself a break every couple months. I get exhausted from time to time of solving all the problems behind the scenes and operating a brokerage. It could be exhausting. And then I know, girl, it's time to take your family and peace out. Let your operations team take over and go soak in and get inspired again so you come back with your tank full, refreshed and energized. And it does work for me, right? And
Right.
it really does. You're not going to lose business and your whole career isn't going to fall apart if you take a freaking week off.
Right.
It just isn't.
Right.
So I think a lot of times I lead by example. I post my pics, I share my
Yes.
things. I don't hide my experiences because I come back and I'm like, this absolutely influenced me. My last trip to Africa was life changing. Like there's just no way you could go and not come back like completely just moved by an experience. And you know, I want that to infiltrate into other arenas of my life, not just be this 1 week vacation that I took and then I forget about it and just look at pictures every now and then.
Right.
So I'm really big on that. I'm also big on saying like, you know, education's very big in our company. We constantly are training, constantly are putting networking with other brokerages where we're putting on continuing education classes and pushing to keep learning. So every single week we have a training. We have a meeting, but we always have a training. And it's for every single person. It's not just for new agents. Yes, we have a new agent thing. It's 20 weeks. There's a lot of overall training. But the truth is like we never stop learning. And I want to
Mhm.
build an where everybody is in there and coming to this company because they want that.
Yeah.
And I want that. I want that for my people, even if they educate themselves right into starting their own brokerage or they
Right.
educate themselves like I'm out of this business and I want to do something else. I'm like this is your life. You know, like any platform that when you're with me for whatever time it is, I hope that I'm giving you a place where you're feeling like inspired and energized and educated and supported so that you could take whatever endeavor it is next. I just, for me, education is such, again, high value. Look at where your money goes. Like so much of my bank account goes towards education, towards books, towards continue. I just literally continued during COVID. I went back and got my master's and I just wrapped up in May. I mean, there's never enough, I think, probably time to get all of that, all of those things the world wants to teach us. So, again, it's one of the great parts of when you say, like, did I want to be a brokerage owner? No. But one of the things I absolutely love about having my own company is I'm corporate headquarters and I could just infuse this into like what I want to do with people and
Yes.
bring a lot of education in.
Yeah. No, I think those are great. And I just went to Switzerland for almost 10
I
days and it
saw
was
that.
so hard to do, because Oliver is medically fragile and Andrew and I couldn't go together and it took it was like a logistical puzzle that took us a long time to back into. But I was so grateful that I was able to do it. And Andrew went to Japan, so we can't travel together, but we are like making this thing happen. And it was emotional
It's
for me
huge.
because we traveled so much before we had Oliver and we went to, New Zealand and Croatia and like all these different places. And giving up that part of myself, I didn't realize how much I had missed that. I mean, if you're a traveler, you just are like it's either in you or it's
Hmm.
not.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to give up on this again, even if it's just me.
But so that's the amazing part of it is like look at you guys found like this is such an important thing for both of us as individuals as humans, right? Walking this earth together and raising our child together. You're doing it separately, and that is amazing because some people will be like we can't do it together, therefore we can't do it. Clearly it's a high enough value and it's important enough that you figured out, like you said, backed into that logistical puzzle of how to do this, and you still get to do it, right? And if you
Right.
ever want to go on a a trip. Because my husband too, he's like in a job sometimes where he's like, I can't pick up and do this. But I'm like, I've got a team right now where solo travel is going to be a little bit more important. And as my kids age, I'm going to trust them a little bit to be like, mom would like to go away for a 3 week stint this time and really dig her feet in. Um,
Right.
yeah, I'm going to do it. Right. It's like, so I just think I think, when you talk about clarity, Stephanie, it's when you are really, really secure. Sometimes you don't know what you want. And that happens at all stages in life. It's not like at 50, you're suddenly like, I got it. But when you do know what you want, if you have it, no matter what domain it's in, like make sure you ask and make sure you push to do the things you do know that you want. Like it's okay to say, I want this and I'm going to go for it. Whatever it may be, if you've got that clarity, right? If you've got that real passion for it, um, work around and respect others in getting what you want. Like it doesn't need to be the selfish
Sure.
thing,
Yeah.
but you got to do it. And then the more you do it, the more the clarity comes, and the more confidence comes, and the more the business sense comes, because you're truly feeding what I've learned is called your telos, like your purpose.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right. And when you were helping mentor me through a really important business process, you just kept saying, well, what do you want? And I would, mumble around something and you're like, okay, well, what do you want? And I'm like mumbling around something and you're like, okay, ask for it. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. You're like, why not? I'm like, I'm not sure. And you're like, well, you ask for what you want, all these different things, and you ask for your clients, no questions asked. I'm like, well, if it's my client, I would ask. Of course, I would ask, and I would advocate, and I would fight hard, and I wouldn't back down. I mean, because for my client or for my kid or for something else, and in the inspiration lab, talking to women about doing that for their health or for them, but there's something about this disconnect for me when it came to me in this particular setting that was really hard for it to click. I
Mm,
mean, I really
mhm.
needed your help and support to push back against that and say, what's different here? Like, why are the pieces not connecting? And I really think it was about believing like that I deserved it, that it was worth it, and that was a really
Though, too,
surprising thing for me.
Stephanie, too, but I think I'd also say, and that might be part of it, but how many times do we stop and say, what do I want? Like personally, do we ask ourselves that? Rarely do other people say to you, what do you want? What do you want? Like a lot of times they're figuring out
No,
what they need, right? They're
I'm
trying to figure
asking
out like
everyone else what
right,
they want. I mean, that's part
right,
of being a
right,
leader. Is like, hey, what do you want? What do you need? You're taking care of people all the time. Literally, no one asks me what I want. Just to
right.
be
And
completely,
you maybe hadn't even asked yourself,
no, I
right?
don't have
You
time for
hadn't
that.
even said, no, right? Because you're too busy like doing everything. And you're like, I think I want this. I think I want others to get what they want. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, what do I want? And it takes a second. And then when you click it and you start asking, you're like, I want this. I do want this. I actually really want this. Then now the onus and the big move comes on. Now you have to say, I want it. You have to own it, ask for it, and you may not get it, or someone may not give it to you. And that's a bummer. But man, you just don't know until, I mean, that was when we were talking about that. I was like, wait, you actually are pretty clear whether it's whatever it may look like, this certain way of how you want to shift your business. You know what you want. There's somebody on the other end that would like to do business with you. Tell them what you want. And it worked out,
Yeah,
right? You did it when it happens. So yeah, it's kind of cool when you see it kind of play out. It comes to fruition that way.
right. Because I think a lot of our wisdom comes from clarity, and clarity is from literally figuring out what you want. But it is like so much of my Southern upbringing and so much of what I was taught was to take care of other people. It was literally nobody sat me down as a little girl and said, "Here's how you figure out what you want in life." Like, I mean, that it's such a like literally was such a shift because so much of the focus is on taking care of other people and working on things. But as
Right.
a business leader, it is our job to sit down and say, "What do I want for this organization, or what do I want for the future of my family, or for myself, or for my health?" And it takes real time, but getting really clear is that first step, and then asking for it. And look, nothing bad happens if you can or can't achieve that full picture, but it's surprising how close you can get. Maybe you get 90%, 95%, 80%, whatever, but that clarity to your point begets more clarity, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And to your point, when I was traveling in Switzerland, I had that sort of click moment where I was like, "Oh, this is part of who I am." I knew that, and I knew I was going to get that part back, and I'm not letting that part go again. Whatever that looks like. And I think that hopefully for people listening to this, whether it's personally or professionally, when you have that moment, you have to like lock into it and listen to it right then. It
Hmm.
could be anything. It can
Hmm.
be driving down the road and singing a song and thinking, I got to get back to the karaoke bars. Like, this is when I feel alive, you know, or whatever that moment is. There's so much life giving power in that. You have to listen to it or it will pass you by and you will just miss it.
And I do think we have to acknowledge too that, just as women, we are raised differently. We
Yes.
simply are. I think that's what, so I have not seen the Barbie movie, but I think so many people love that one
Yeah.
monologue that, yeah, that one actress gave, but I've seen it everywhere on social media and I love it. But it's like, we're always taught to think of others first, and probably for good reason. I think I think we got to own the fact that, a big part of humanity stays the course because of, uh, you know, the 49% of the population nurturing.
Yes.
And given a bigger leadership role, frankly, I think our Earth and our world might be in better shape.
Yes.
um, but right, I think that there's also a gift in holding the responsibility of
Yes.
nurturing and caring for others. But I think that sometimes I challenge when it becomes a cost for ourselves, because you can only nurture, right? You can only feed and love and give warmth when you have the capacity and the
Mm,
abundance within your vessel to do so. So you
yeah.
cannot, if you're coming from scarcity and deficit, you don't have that nourishment to give others. So I think I challenge the process of like, it's a kind of a holistic thing, and as women we really, and I think we're doing better and way better than we ever have in society. It is way better to be a woman today than
Yes.
it was 6 weeks ago, than it was 30 years ago.
Hmm.
I am seeing us in an upward trajectory, but I think, it's just something we've got to acknowledge, especially to an industry that is what, like, still 60-70% female.
Yes.
um, I want to acknowledge with all those women that it is not self to take really abundant self-care. And I'm not talking about a mani-pedi or a
No.
massage. I'm
No.
talking about big, inspirational, deep self-care of getting to the core of who you are. And
Absolutely.
I'm really big on that. I have I have one guy on my leadership, one guy on my staff team, but we're mostly women. And it's like, of course we got to do a job, we got to show up and do work, but you as an individual, all my women, like health and their parenting and all of that, if they are feeling good in those domains, they are such better workers, they are such better contributors. So it's got to be within me to be like, you always take care of it at that level first, no
Right.
questions asked. um, and that's why I feel like I've got a really strong team. That's why I love owning a business. That's what
Yes.
I get from a business, whether it was real estate or bookmaking or, food services. I think that's really the core of it, is like, what's the philosophy of how you move whatever product it is you're serving.
Yes, and I love that. I love that about you. And yeah, you can't pour from an empty well. And so I think figuring out how to do that is so important. And that's why we always say at the Inspiration Lab, self-care is strategic. It's not selfish. It really is a strategic
No,
thing to do.
that's a
So
good way
I
to put
just
it.
thank you for coming on the podcast, for being my friend, for being a mentor and an inspiration. I cannot wait to see you in person, which I hope will happen soon. And I just appreciate your wisdom. So thank you so much for your time.
uh, so good to see you, even from afar. And yes, call me, I want to connect and see you again soon. And I really am honored to be here today, Stephanie. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.